was interesting is that we very quickly decided not to make 3 separate parts of an exhibition, but to choose to select rooms together and to make, say, one big installation. Now, perhaps the most important decision we made together was to not select your own space, not select something from your own architecture, but to give each other, I think it was like a folder with 10 projects, and each of these projects was then, I mean, we at office, David and me, we looked at Johnston Marklee projects. Nuno looked at Johnston Marklee and our projects. We looked at Nuno's projects. So, in a way, it was more trying to discover architecture spaces, which we found interesting. Some of them, which maybe we've seen a picture of. Some others which were never realized. Some spaces which maybe we misunderstood. You looked at the plan, you looked at the section, and so very much, I believe it was about discovery of what a certain, say, space as you see it in plan and section could be like in reality. So we did not have to represent ourselves. We didn't have to think, if we think of our own office, what would be the most interesting space? No, we could look at Johnston Marklee and say, hey, which one would be the space we would really like to see? And the same with Nuno Brandão Costa, with Nuno. And so that's how I think we worked. I have the impression also Nuno and Mark and Sharon worked like that. So we looked through the plans and we found some spaces. I remember a very narrow triangular space of Nuno's, which we thought, wow, how would that be like? We'd never seen the building. Of Mark, a kind of strangely domed space, maybe a space which we as an office would never make, but which we would like to see. So I think that's a little bit how it went.
It just came as a kind of, as Kersten was saying, a very natural fascination for each of the practices, and so we chose out of very personal reasons triangle spaces, domed spaces, things that we obviously maybe or less obvious would make ourselves, because and in a weird way we felt the same from the others. They had a kind of fascination for probably our work in another way, and so it's very complementary, and in that sense, if you combine them all together, you get what you've seen, and it's a weird effect when you put it all together, but it works immediately, probably because of this complementarity.
Yeah. I think for us, and you can also very much see that in the spaces selected by the other 2 offices, our architecture is often very, very simple, very rigid. So I think we were very interested in exactly these spaces in their work. Like, say, Nuno's work often has very rectangular spaces, very simple spaces, but I think we looked for the exceptions. We looked for the spaces which were a little bit different from that. And I think with Johnston Marklee, with Mark and Sharon, we look very much for these spaces which has a very specific sectional quality. Maybe something which we don't explore so much in our own work. So that's where ultimately, of course we were looking at each other while choosing. There was, I think, first a long list, if I remember well, like 4 or 6 spaces, and then it became a short list, 3, 4 spaces. And so gradually it became almost evident. There was a version of the project about a year ago, a bit longer, where it was inside the electricity hall. And what was, I think, very much important for us then, all 3 of us, was that it was a sequence of interiors and you could never quite see the exterior of it. So the thought was that when the spaces were very close to each other, you would walk from room into room into room, and you would never see the construction of it. You would never see the outside. So that was possible in this big space. So the moment it moved outside, I think somehow also the relationship between the different rooms changed a bit. So I think we allowed ourselves a bit more space. So you see it now that sometimes there's some leftover space, which I guess we all felt was okay because you would go to see the building anyhow from the side. You could almost walk in between the building. And so now you see very much, and I think we all like that, and it was a bit of a, I would say, a very positive result of the consequences of how to build it. That you see a perfect space plastered on the inside, and you see a fragment of another building on the outside. No? You see, in a way, something, I don't know who said that, from the outside the building almost looks like a building, very material, very specific, this steel, this metal studs construction. It has a very strong presence in some sense, and then you go on the inside and it becomes very ephemeral, plastered and white, abstract, model-like. And so this kind of, I think, ambiguity became very, very strong, very powerful. And so that's where I feel the final version, but it had 2-3 versions. I mean, Nuno certainly explained that it was first much closer to the building, then all of a sudden there was this relationship with the water, and so gradually this became clear. And what you see now, but I think we have to absolutely credit Nuno with that, in the way it was built, the actual materialization of the outside, like the metal stud beams, the metal stud itself, started to have a very strange relationship with the architecture of the old electricity building, which is beautiful, a very technical appearance in a way.
And also one more thing, even in favor again of Nuno, who managed locally and of course is much of an author of the project, but as much as he was here just dealing with the project. He also chose from our office 2 patios, and it's somehow weird how he arranged them also. I mean, obviously we talked about it together over mail, you know, about how to compose them, but he put them in the whole composition, and somehow all together it makes sense. And there are 2 patios which are basically not built space, and they are from the Ordos project we made, and also from the one in the Shore House in Brussels. And really enough, they combine all spaces around it. So we are also somehow very honored, we could almost say, by just providing open spaces within the composition of what is the final result for the Triennale.
And it has also to do with decisions about materialization, no? I mean spaces, some of them which we built and some others which we never built, all of a sudden by whitening them, by plastering them, they became comparable to spaces which, say, Johnston Marklee built, which are maybe very different in tectonic. And that was, I think, also for us quite a discovery, that you walk from one into the other and you think again and say, oh wow, this is a space of ours originally, or a space of Mark and Sharon, or of Nuno. So that was really special. And I think there, as so often, no, I mean, I think you cannot make it as a diagram. You have to make it in real. And in that sense, the form of form, I mean, Diogo's intentions, I mean, it has been said in many occasions, Diogo, I mean, sadly was a genius. I mean, he was able to see links which I think neither of us was able to see. He was able to say, my friends, David, Kersten, Sharon, Mark, or Nuno, actually they can do something together. And although we kind of knew each other, we did not know Nuno very well at the time. We always, I think, thought, despite all the respect, there are different practices. And then somehow putting you together and then finding a way, I think we discovered kind of, what was overlapping along the way. And that was, I think, that's absolutely Diogo's merit.